Welcome to Alpha Wolf's Den. There's a lot more to a company than just their earnings. Alpha Wolf's Den, we're searching for those intangibles. We're looking for clarity and enlightenment. You can have a great product or a great service, but without great vision, without passion, without a plan, how many of those will be successful investments? Alpha Wolf's Den is all about getting to know the leadership, and not so much all of their successes, but their failures. And how did they address those failures? How did they bounce back when they faced challenges? Do they have a big cash burn? What's the mission? What's the total addressable size of the market? We want to separate fact from the fluff. We want to know insider participation. We want to know what the long-term objectives are and the tactical initiatives that are going to get them there. Investing is more than just looking at earnings reports. It's understanding how debt can impact the company, or the size of the float, or the amount of shares outstanding. All of the things that can be obstacles, conflicts, challenges. We're looking for solutions. And we're ultimately looking for the hidden gems. That's what Alpha Wolf Den is all about. I hope you enjoy this interview, because this is a company that I think could be one of those hidden gems. Okay, everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a very special guest, actually the founder of AUUD I, which I think is an incredible story that could change the way we listen to radio, reinventing audio. They actually have a couple of things. They've got the AUUD I app, and then they've got the Vodacast, and we're gonna go over both of those. But it is my pleasure to introduce you to Jeff Thramann. Jeff, I am so glad you're here this morning. I am very curious. I want my members to understand who you are. So this is an interesting development for you, new company that you've started out, but give us a little bit of background about who Jeff is.
Yeah, so I come out to space with what I think is a pretty unique background. Grew up in New Jersey, been an East Coast guy my whole life, went to the military academy at West Point. After a short stint in the Army, I decided to go into medicine. Went to Cornell Med on the Upper East Side of New York City. And after completing med school, went out to Phoenix, Arizona to do my neurosurgical residency and my spine fellowship at a place called the Barrow Neurological Institute. It's the busiest neurosurgical center in the US. And came out of there. And, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I had started a company while I was a resident and didn't really want to work for anybody. So I came up to Boulder, Colorado, where I wanted to live. And I just planted my flag, started my own practice here, and quickly grew that into the largest neurosurgical practice in the northern part of Colorado. I got out of neurosurgery in 2008. And that was primarily because I invented this new product that helps fuse the spine together in a more minimally invasive fashion. Grew that into a big medical device company and wound up selling it to Biomet. So I've done a number of different companies, all from zero to exit. I've done 6 outside of AUUD I, and those have all been in the healthcare space, but they have a common theme. And that common theme is I come up with an idea, something that's interesting to me. I then file some patents on it, and I'm the named inventor on somewhere around 130 patents, both in the US and internationally. And then I start exploring whether there's a business opportunity. And if there is, I put some teams behind it. I grow it, raise some financing, and then, continue to build the company and see what happens. And in the past, typically what's happened is the company's been acquired either by a public company or a private equity roll-up.
All right, so we go from surgeon to radio.
Yeah, well, like I said, what was happening, here, it's not like it's completely out of left field. I mean, my undergraduate degree was actually in electrical engineering. And so I've always been on the tech side and the engineering side. And where this really came about is I was driving down the road. This was all the way back in 2011. And I heard an ad on the radio, and it was for this Ice Capades event that I wanted to bring my girls to over the holidays. And I never went to the event. And I was thinking about that, like a month later. And I thought to myself, that's one of the problems with radio. You hear about something that you want to interact with, and you have to take all these steps to kind of engage, and you would have to go out and, at the time, Google, okay, what's happening at Ice Capades, go find those tickets and do a lot of work to go there. So I thought it would be really cool if you could essentially Shazam that type of ad off the radio, get the tickets on your phone, all, at the moment. So the original company I started was called Clip Interactive. And our goal was actually to do that. I had talked to some radio advertisers, and they said, Jeff, listen, if you had a real-time feedback mechanism for us on our ads that came back to us and gave us data as to who was responding, that would be super interesting. So the first product we built was actually that. It was focused on enhancing the ads, giving some interactivity to those ads. And we were able to build that up to have about 580 different radio stations on that platform with about 1.6 million monthly active users. And what you could do with that platform is anything that you heard on radio, we had built a digital interactive feed that was in real time that correlated with that. So if a song was playing on the radio, it was a piece of digital content that correlated with that song. If it was this Ice Capades event, that would be there digitally, and you could scroll through that, or you could press a button and get those tickets and you could buy it. And at the time, the streaming properties were just coming around. We thought radio could have a pretty interesting opportunity to compete with iTunes and actually sell music over the air, and then also provide this attribution back to advertisers. So we were in the process of doing all of that when we realized that even at 1.6 million monthly active users on the platform, although that's pretty good for an app, when you're talking about 270 million people listening to radio in any given month, it's a drop in the bucket. So we knew it wasn't really resonating, with most listeners. And we knew radio was struggling to drive people to their feed, because we were there working with them, promoting it, trying to move people from the over-the-air broadcast over to the stream. But there was no real value proposition on the stream. It was the same thing that you got over the air. It just that you had the streaming component, nothing different. So what we did is we decided to leverage artificial intelligence technologies and look at, can we create a premium listening environment for radio like all the other media channels have done, video and print, where you can put something behind the subscription paywall and you can get a premium and really add some value. So the value we thought we would add was really coming up with this ad-free model, letting radio for the first time give consumers control over their listening experience. That means if radio puts something in front of them that they don't like, they can skip it. They can program stuff that they want to hear. For instance, if they want to get in their car every morning and get a quick traffic update and then hear something about the weather and then maybe about the game last night, they can program that so it's consistent and then go right into their favorite station. And if the station is putting something up they don't like, they can skip it. If there's a particular show that they want to hear, they can request that and have that play. When commercials come on, they can cover those with additional content. So that's really what we set out to build. And we filed our initial patents on that AI platform. And then we started building it and got it to work to where it now is able to identify all the different types of content on radio. And by doing that, we can then provide this premium listening experience in exchange for a subscription. So it's really a game changer for radio, where now all of a sudden the stream is way more compelling than the over-the-air concept. And we're moving radio from this one-to-many broadcast model that they've been stuck with since the beginning of time to a personalized one-to-one listening experience, which has never happened before, and which every other source of media has moved to. And this is what consumers expect today, right? Pay a premium, get a better experience that's personalized to you. So that's where we're at with the Auddia app.
So just as a little background, so I've been in this from the very beginning, from when I can't remember the first time we met, but when I saw what it was that you were trying to accomplish, to me, it was like a no-brainer. I was thinking to myself, there's so many pay for premium options out there, but why do I listen to local? Because I want to know what's happening in my neighborhood, right? I want to know what events are happening. I want to know what restaurants are, I mean, all the stuff that is important to me locally, my weather, right? And I thought this was a no-brainer. I thought that the radio stations, from what you had described when we first talked, they were getting 80% of the cut. You were taking 20% of the cut, and you were going to them as friend, not foe, right? You're not going in there and trying to threaten their business model. You're trying to give them another opportunity for a revenue stream.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been working with broadcast radio since 2012. That's when we first started, and we worked with, like I said, 580 different radio stations across the country and in almost all of the major groups to have this interactive, feed on the platform. Really, the only ones we didn't work with was iHeart, because they had iHeart Radio, right? They had their own platform. But pretty much everybody else we worked with, and they were on that platform. And our goal has always been to help radio on the streaming side. So they don't have this premium listening experience, but what they do have is they have a big audience. So our game plan and our original go-to-market strategy, which really hasn't changed that much now, how we accelerate that has changed. But the strategy itself is really to partner with broadcast radio to get them to go on air, to tell their listeners that there is this premium listening experience that they can get by downloading the Auddia app and listening to their stations on that app. Now, our original model was that anybody who did that, and it still could be it's still our model. Anybody who does that gets an 80% split of the subscription revenue. So what we do is we take all the subscription revenue that we get, we take 20% off the top. Then we take the other 80%, we put it in a pool. And for any radio stations that are participating, which means they're on air promoting this, they're reinvesting in some of their local content to improve the experience. If they're doing these things, then they will share in that 80% revenue pool based on time spent listening to their platform. This incentivizes them to make it a better and better experience. So you had a slide up a minute ago where you show these results from this Harris poll we did. And this is, I think, super important for radio to understand. When you look at who is extremely, so we went out with this Harris poll and they engaged 2,000 respondents, and they asked them to describe themselves as people who were primarily listening to radio or were already spending the money on a subscription. And that's about 133 million people today subscribing to an audio product. And of course, radio gets none of that, but radio has 270 million people on their free tier. And our product was described, and they were asked, how likely are you to purchase this product? And of people who identified as radio listeners, 7% said they were extremely likely to purchase. But more importantly, for people who are already paying a subscription to somewhere else, these are people that radio has already lost for the most part. 12% of them said they would come back to this platform and pay the fees. And we did a further pricing analysis, and that fee really came out to be about $12 per month as the optimal pricing. So here's an opportunity for radio to get into the game of a premium experience and get into the game of subscription, not really damage their ability to monetize the advertising if you're having 7% or so move over to this other platform, and then using the subscription revenue to reinvest in their product to improve the local content that they can put out there, which I would argue is then going to increase the amount of listening they have on the ad side more than the 7% that they might lose to that premium side. And for everybody that they do move over to the premium side, they make about 2x revenue over what they currently make on the ad model. So it's a super compelling thesis for radio. It's something that's going to happen. We have the best platform out there to make it happen, and we don't think it's going to happen in a fragmented environment. And this comes down to how you go to market and how consumers interact. You know, one of the primary advantages that radio has is it's on the dial, right? It's on your head unit. It's sitting right there. And there is zero chance, I mean, I'm talking zero, that you're going to be looking at head units that are going to have individual applications for the different radio station groups. There's not going to be an iHeart Radio app sitting there, an Odyssey app sitting there, whatever Cumulus comes up with sitting there. That's not going to happen. It's going to be one app that has all the radio stations in a premium environment sitting on that dash. And that's going to happen for a couple of reasons, not only for consumers, but when you go to deploy this on the head unit, the automotive companies have to make a decision. Okay, which are going to be the primary ones that we put on there? And if there's a new AM, FM radio listening experience that can be put on the dash, it allows this premium option where that revenue can be shared with the automotive companies, very similar to how SiriusXM deployed, but without the headwinds that SiriusXM had with having to change the head unit out to get a satellite chip in there. We don't have that. Obviously, they can just place it in there. With
every car comes with the radio.
Exactly.
Not every car came with a Sirius XM receiver, right? So
exactly,
they don't have, I mean, not only that, but the sales cycle to get into an any make of vehicle is so long. It's incredible how long it takes to get your product into a vehicle. I mean, it's like a 3, 4, 5 year sales cycle, right? Before you can get into one model car. Radio comes in every single car. So they have their barrier to entry it's not limited to brand, or they're in every car, bottom line, right? From day one.
And consumers can make a choice. They can say, hey, listen, I'll take the regular AM, FM option that you have, or I'll take this premium option. And you can give them the premium option, just like SiriusXM does. Give it to them for 3 months, check it out, and then have them subscribe, to that offering, going forward. So these are the ways that we help radio. We're going to help with distribution. We're going to help them maintain a premium position on the dash, and we're going to drive more revenue to broadcasters for every listener that moves from the ad model over to the subscription model. Yet they're still going to maintain the reach that they currently have, because a lot of the free option is powerful, and there's a lot of people that like free. I say, if you really want to understand the power of free, I live in Denver, but this applies to almost any city nowadays. Just go downtown Denver at 5 o'clock, rush hour traffic, and look at the people sitting there in the traffic lane, and then go look at the express lane. It's flowing freely, and it's a couple of dollars. Most people are going to sit in the free congested lane. They're just going to, and that's a reality. So that that reach is always going to be there. But for the people that want that local content, why not give them this premium option? Get this extra, this higher margin recurrent revenue, which Wall Street values way more than the ad model, and take those dollars, increase your market cap, improve your debt positions, and then reinvest into your local markets so you have better content, instead of doing the opposite, which is to not have this premium listening experience. Start cutting local talent and becoming nationalized systems that become bland and really have a hard time competing with the SXMs and the Spotifys and the Pandoras and the other opportunities that are out there for consumers. And if you take that down to the millennial generation and below, I mean, forget it. I mean, you have to have this type of capability.
So here's my question to you, Jeff. I mean, you present a very compelling case. My question is, why then haven't the radio stations seen the vision and jumped on board? Where do you think the disconnect lies? I have one thought myself, which is they are a advertise based model, right? So they're collecting their income now from selling ads, right? So maybe if they have a premium option model, that maybe, they're afraid that the advertisers are going to boycott them. Would that be a logical assumption as to why maybe you're not getting that jump on board?
I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. We see that reaction from what I would call the smaller independent broadcasters that we're currently working with. That's their first concern. The partners that are currently on the platform, that was their first concern too, and they're not seeing anything. They're not seeing any pushback at all from radio. And like I said, if you're talking about moving 7% of the market over to the platform, it's not gonna impact what you're doing. And if you're getting this additional revenue, there's all kinds of things you can do to improve the experience. You could cut down on ad load if you wanted to, and maintain your revenue and increase your prices. Where then the advertisers get more focus instead of having 16 minutes of ads an hour, 32 flying over there to the consumer every hour. You can cut that down in half, and the advertisers are going to get more exposure. But the advertisers are going to stay. They need that they want that local exposure, and they can't get it at scale really with any other platform. So that's always going to be there, and I don't think that's going away. But I think there's a bigger issue out there too that's floating around that I think we can overcome pretty easily. And I think if you look at radio and you look at essentially their market cap, and these are really the bigger players, the public company players, they're not getting a lot of value for the revenue that they're driving, and that's just a function of the ad model. So they've all tried over the past 10 years various digital experiences. You saw Cumulus go out and buy a big streaming platform, RDO years ago, and that turned into a big flail. You saw iHeartRadio try to incorporate everybody onto the platform back when they were Clear Channel, and then when they changed their name to iHeartMedia, after they built the brand of iHeart, on the backs of all those advertising dollars or efforts from the other broadcasters, that turned a lot of people off, and you saw that fragment. You saw radio.com out there with CBS not getting a lot of traction, and now trying to be kind of represented as Odyssey, and more fragmentation in the industry. So you saw the entire industry get behind the Next Radio effort for years. So you've seen all these digital efforts essentially flail, for lack of a better word, right? And every time that happens, it just puts a stake in the ground and starts to highlight how the over-the-air kind of one-to-many broadcast model doesn't really fit within the streaming world where everything's moving. So they're sitting there with a product that can't really compete. It can't give this premium listening experience. It can't give this personalization, and it can't go commercial free. So and they've already burned their investor base by trying. So every time radio goes out and does something on the digital side, their stock moves downward, right? People don't want to see another failed effort. But if somebody like us, a third party, goes out and builds this, and this is important too, radio can't do what we're doing economically on their own. It has to be a third party that does this. So we go out and we do this on our own, working with some of the broadcasters, and everybody knows what we're doing. I'm talking to everybody out there. And I don't have anybody really saying, hey, this is a terrible idea, we're not going to do this. When we first started in 2018 with this, when we filed our first patents around the AI, I brought it up and said, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And they all said, that would be super interesting. That's the future. We think you should go for it. So we kind of went for it, and we continue to talk with them. But I don't think the big guys can really pull the trigger until we show that, hey, there's subscribers here. There are people paying $12 a month. You can get a share of this by helping to push this. And your investor base is not going to be afraid that you're going down another digital rat hole, that you have a real solution here that's going to maintain your position in the dash, that's going to let you respond to the other audio streaming products that are out there, that's going to let you continue to dominate your position with local, and that's going to let you continue to use your programming expertise to distance yourself from everybody else, because that's where audio is going, right? It's exploding and it's fragmenting, and consumers are struggling with, where do I get local content and what local content do I listen to? And if you look at the big strengths of radio, it's programming and it's local content. They are embedded into the community, into every community throughout the country. They spent the money on the infrastructure to do that back when it was only print, TV, and radio. So nobody else can do that today. Nobody else has the margin. So they need to accelerate that, and we give them solutions to all of these problems.
I mean, I love the story. What is shocking to me is the fact that you haven't gotten more bite, but we're not going to name names here, but you and I have had a discussion before where one of the publicly traded companies basically said that when you were getting ready to do your IPO, that they hoped you failed so that they could pick you up for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, listen, they've always liked our technology. They liked our team. They liked our vision of where we're taking the industry. And listen, like I said, I talked to everybody when we flipped over to this model. I mean, I had discussions with Bob Pittman over email. I've talked to the folks at Odyssey about what we were doing. I've been in multiple discussions with the folks at Cumulus, letting them know where we're going. And, we're doing a partnership with the Independent Broadcasters Association with their 1,500 station members. So radio knows what we're doing. They're cheering us on for the most part behind the scenes. And listen, the best thing that could happen to radio, honestly, would be if we were so successful that everybody moved over to this model, and we're paying $12 a month to listen to radio. That's not going to happen. And then, like I said, the ad model is going to preserve, but they make significantly more money on the subscription revenue and its recurrent revenue that Wall Street likes a lot more. I mean, look at the entire radio industry. It's making about, $16-18 billion if you layer in digital and over the air advertising revenue. And you take the market cap of all the public companies out there, I mean, it's about $5 billion. I mean, it's brutal. And then you go and you look at SiriusXM, and they have $5 billion in revenue or $6 billion in revenue compared to the 18 that radio has, and their market cap hovers anywhere from 25 billion to 35 billion. So you can see that the street loves the recurrent revenue. It's very stable, and nowhere was that more glaring than during COVID, right? I mean, this is why investors like that recurrent revenue model. You don't need sales teams to go out and sell it. It comes in and day out. You just have to reinvest in the product and make sure you're providing consumers what they want. And that's what we're giving to radio. So I think as soon as we can prove that there's money to be made here and that consumers want this, I don't think you have anybody that does not come on our platform.
So let's talk about, so that your approach has been, you're out there, you're trying to get these guys on board to promote it for you. And you signed up, what, I think it was 5 different, I put the slide up earlier, but you had 5 different radio stations that have signed up with you guys, are actively running the program, right?
Yeah,
They're
and
out there they're advertising for you. How is your response been in those markets?
yeah. So I think I think that's the real issue about why the stock might not be moving yet, is because we were hoping to put out results on how we were doing with those programs, and originally, right after Q3. And we ran into some delays with the broadcasters. Again, this goes to one of the reasons why just activating everybody all at once, which we announced what we're going to do on February 15th, is super helpful. By working with the broadcasters and slowly going through this process, broadcasters are somewhat constrained, right? And they were in this process. There were sales of radio stations which basically took everybody's attention off of implementing our solution for a period of time. There were some technology issues with getting the streams in the right format for our AI to train on, and we overcame all of those. So the point is, the big data that we were trying to put out was really with Sonoma, because that's where we have the geographic concentration of radio stations in one market, to see if we really can provide value. And we're just starting that right now. So we were supposed to put out results. We really won't have those really until sometime in January at the earliest, to put forth. And then, of course, we have the big launch on February 15th. So where we think we start to get traction is when we do activate all stations on February 15th. And there was a little bit of a progress that we needed to make still on our AI model to be able to activate all stations on the platform. So for instance, right now, the stations that are on the platform, these are guys that we're working with, right? We're training our AI on their stations. So the AI is cheating a little bit. It kind of sees the problem, it sees the test before it's taking the test. So the results are really good. Now, when we take that same model and we put it against stations that we've never trained it on, where we're not partnered with them, we don't perform quite as good. I mean, we perform just as good on music content, but we need to improve some of the ad differentiation currently. And when I say improve, we're only a couple of percentage points away from where we need to be the same. And we're building up this big 8 ad database, which is extra data to put into the AI model. And the reason the AI model is better on music than it is on ads is just because for every hour that we train the model, there's just more music in an hour of radio than there is in ads. So we have to beef up that ad component. We're doing that, and that will close the gap to get us over that hump. And we're hoping to do some tests on that, and that'll probably be the next press release that we put out, is closing that gap. But we were confident enough that we're going to close that gap shortly to make the announcement that we'll be activating all stations on February 15th.
Okay, so let's talk about the February 15th thing, because when I first heard it, I was like, are they going to be, I wasn't exactly sure what the news release was. I was thinking, well, wait a minute, are they going to all radio stations, like across the entire country, every radio station, or is it just the guys they're working with? But you're moving this forward, and the reason, or I guess the way you're able to do this without getting the radio stations on board, is you have essentially made sure that you're not violating any laws, any copyright laws. You went through the process of finding out what your liability could be, correct?
Absolutely. And, we did that with a high-powered law firm in this space, Wilson Sonsini, and engaged them to evaluate our technologies and make sure that we were good from not only with the radio broadcasters, but also with the music industry and the music rights. So from the radio perspective, I mean, we're essentially following all the rules and the regulations associated with the DVR industry. And we've architected our technology platform to essentially be a digital audio recorder, right? It's the DVR for audio. So when you download our app, you're downloading a DAR, and you're downloading our AI model. And we've shrunk the AI model down to be able to operate on the phone. Phones are super powerful now, right? And these models have come down in size so that they can function there. So the way it works is in our copyright laws in the US, there's a fair use exemption. And this is America. And if a broadcaster of anything, doesn't matter if it's video, TV, whatever, if they're going to put something out there out to the public, and they're going to use that public infrastructure that is there to distribute their product, any consumer can record that product for their own use, right? Companies can't record it and then mail it out to everybody, but consumers can record it. Now, consumers can't push it out to anybody either, and they can't monetize it, but they can use it for their own consumption. And that's what the DVR industry is built on. And there's significant case law that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court level that establishes that right in the United States. So that's really how we've architected this. Broadcast radio is putting their streams out publicly on the internet at publicly available URLs, and consumers can attach to those, record those stations, and then process their recording to make it a premium listening experience for themselves. And that's how our technology works.
And you're just providing that capability. You're not doing it. I mean, you're just providing the tool for the consumer to be able to do that, right?
That's right. I mean, the best way to look at us is we're a technology company, really. I mean, we're an AI-based audio technology company, and we build products that help consumers, engage with audio in different ways. And that's really what we're doing here. So what they're getting from us is this app that has that digital audio recorder, and they're getting this highly advanced AI technology to process that recording to give them this personalized listening experience that they control. They basically control the radio station at that point. Now they're delayed slightly by a couple of minutes, because they're recording it and then processing it and then pulling in content they want or skipping stuff.
So it's you're no longer getting live up to the minute. You're ready. I mean, it's delayed by a couple of minutes, but unless you're listening to, I don't know. I mean, I can't even think of anything where it would be really that important unless it was some kind of an emergency, right? Where you have to be.
Right. And we have that as well. So we do have every station available with their free standard stream. So that's kind of like the tune-in model, right? We accumulate every station that's free. Now, tune-in tends to remove stations if they don't want to be on the platform for whatever reasons. Our directory covers everybody. So if you want to listen to any station that is being publicly broadcast through a URL, you can connect to that station and listen to it. Now you're going to get the ads. It's going to be the same experience you get today, but that's available too. And that's a free tier on our platform. So anybody who wants like a tune-in, like listening experience, can download our app and get that for free. And then what we do is we put these premium offerings on top of that. So the first premium offering we provide at $5.99 is really very much like a DVR. You can pause, you can fast forward, you can skip, you can do those types of capabilities on the station. And then the next level up from there is content choice. This is where consumers are able to select from a bunch of different choices of content. For instance, they might be interested in local artists. They can pick local artists. They can hear vignettes about their music. They can interject that into the playlist when commercials are supposed to be played. That sort of thing. And that's going to be at $8.99. And then the ultimate pricing is really this automated, ad skipping content or capability where everything's automated. And that's the $11.99 tier.
Okay. So I think the big thing that I missed on your February announcement when you said, you guys kind of changed your go-to market was now that if you don't have the radio stations on board, that 11, 12 bucks that you're looking at collecting, instead of giving 80% to the radio stations, that whole 12 bucks is going to go to you guys, right?
that whole $12 comes to us in the beginning because it'll go into that. We'll still have that 80% pool because there are some broadcasters that are participating with us. That 80% pool will be there. It's just that not everybody in the 80% pool will be participating. So the money that goes out from that pool only goes out to broadcasters that are participating. The rest of that money is available to us. Now, one of the things we'll be missing there is we'll be missing the on-air promotion from all of those partners, but this gives us dollars to then be able to purchase those if we'd like to do that. And one of the announcements we made with our partnership with the IBA is to partner directly with the IBA to use those small independent stations that are in every market to really get the word out, because people tend to listen to not only the big Cumulus, iHeart, and Odyssey stations in markets. They also listen to the local IBA stations, which are typically leading stations in each market. So there's crossover. The word does get out, but the cost to market on those stations is much lower than let's say an 80-20 split on a $12 subscription price. So this will be favorable to us. Until radio jumps on board, and the longer they take to get on board, we can drop that 80-20 split down. I mean, it's only fair, right? If we're doing more of the heavy lifting up front, then we can drop that 80-20 down to 70-30, 60-40, 50-50, whatever we feel is appropriate with the partners that we're working for.
Right. The longer they take to get on board, then look, you don't have to do the 80-20 with them, right? If they want to fight, to me, it just seems like probably a lot of the hesitation from the radio industry, maybe the issue there is arrogance, maybe that they didn't come up with the strategy, the plan, the product. Would that be fair to say? They just don't really want to admit that you got something here. I don't know. I'm really struggling with why this hasn't taken off faster. I really thought it would be a much quicker adaptation by the industry.
Yeah, well, remember, we're not really ready to put all stations on the platform yet. So there's not a whole lot we can do, and just onboarding a huge group like iHeart or Odyssey or Cumulus to do it in our current model without our AI crossing that last couple of percentage threshold that I was talking about would take a while, right? And this was our model, and this was what we thought was important about that February 15th announcement, that our previous model was this steady, progressive, station by station march to get everybody on there. We never really put out guidance how long that would take, but you can imagine that's gonna be a multi-year effort. We're gonna condense that all into February 15th with the technology. But once we're up and active, then I think radio comes on board. I don't think it's really an arrogance thing. I think based on the current rules and regulations that they are under, particularly if they do anything related to subscription type radio themselves, they lose access to the Section 114 statutory license in the copyright law, which allows them to get favorable rates for streaming music. Now, if they move outside of that, they immediately need direct contracts with the music industry. And you can see what those direct contracts with the music industry have done to Spotify and Pandora and all the other music players, right? It essentially eviscerates any profits or any chance for profit, because those payments just increase with margin. So if you make any margin, your payments increase. So there's no good model in the music industry to actually make money. Now we are able to do that. Like our free tier, for instance, costs us absolutely nothing. All of that payments for that music is done by radio. When they're streaming, they're paying Sound Exchange. Now, all we pay is when we cover, let's say somebody skips a song and we put that song in, we have our own contracts with the Sound Exchange. We have our own contracts with the PROs. So we make those payments. But that's good.
Speaking about inserting those songs, there is an opportunity there for you to actually approach the artists themselves and say, hey, listen, you want your song inserted, your new hit or whatever for this genre, right? That would be an opportunity, I think, maybe for you guys to capitalize on maybe some revenue there.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, there's a huge opportunity there. And, we just completed another survey. This was done not by the Harris folks, but by Morning Consult. And this was more about to consumers. What do you really want from radio? What are the best things? What are the greatest things that you want? If you could change radio, how would you change it? Of course, the number one thing was we would remove commercials. I mean, that was hands down the number one choice. But after that, when I was like, okay, you're going to replace the commercials, what other content do you want on the platform? It was all about local artists. And it was about hearing those stories about music discovery, which radio still dominates. And that gets to that programming capability, that radio has. And we are perfectly positioned to monetize that. I mean, just take a look at SoundCloud artists and any independents that aren't signed that are trying to get some followings. You could go out there and look at unsigned artists from Spotify and do deals with them to give them an opportunity to get their music put on top of in front of the stations that they think would resonate the best with their songs.
I mean, you guys essentially could become the, let's see, what do they call them? You're like talent agents almost. You could become talent agents.
We want to do exactly like what Spotify really tried to do, but couldn't, right? Spotify essentially wanted to become a distribution platform for music, then help artists build their careers there and become a music label. The problem with Spotify is they were dependent on the music labels to get access to the content, and the music labels put in all those contracts. You do anything like a music label and these contracts are null and void. And Spotify skirted around that a little bit. They tried to do some of that A&R, label capability, and they immediately got slapped back down. So they can't do it. But we believe that by going out and controlling distribution on radio in an environment that helps radio, that we can then use the customization capabilities of our platform to do exactly that. To work with the SoundClouds, to work with the Spotifys by looking at the data of their artists, or just work with the artists themselves, give them a pathway to get discovered on radio. I mean, you can easily imagine a dashboard for program directors to look at what artists are getting followings from their audience and then pull them back onto the air to get some input on what to spin.
Exactly. I mean, I love the whole thing. I mean, I've said to you from the beginning, I love how small you think, Jeff. You actually, I think are one of the most exciting stories out there. I think that, what Alpha Wolf tries to find is the disruptors. And I truly believe that this is a disruptor for the music industry in a whole lot of different areas, right? I think new talent, I think opportunity there is massive. I think this is a great opportunity for regular radio. I mean, look, the valuations on radio compared to the Siriuses and the Spotify's, radio is terrible, right? Why? Because people, I think, view it as a dying business model, right? I mean,
absolutely. And the only thing, we do think big. We are disruptors, if you want to use that word. But here's the thing about disruption. You can have disruption where somebody gets hurt, and you can have disruption where everybody wins. And the disruption that we're putting out there, everybody wins across the board. Radio wins, music wins, we win, artists win, everybody wins. Even the advertisers win. Because because radio is going to maintain that reach, and they're going to maintain that reach with a better product.
So here's another thought. I'm just thinking out loud, but these cars now with the radios and that, I mean, everything's digital on the dashboard. And I mean, look, you've still got this visual, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be an audio commercial. You can still have ads that are popping up on the dashboard, right? I mean, There's,
Absolutely. You know, I've said this forever with even with our, and I'll just give you a quick example, even with our interactive digital platform that we had, you know, context is becoming so important. You know, let's say you got the Zach Brown band out there playing Toes, right? And then right after that, or while that's happening, you can have digital ads on a channel, you know, talking about, you know, hotels in Mexico and flights to Mexico and different types of, you know, things that you could do to go on a vacation, you know, around that song. You could have, I mean, there's just all kinds of capabilities, you know, around that makes it contextually relevant that I think advertisers would love.
exactly. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. And who doesn't like a win-win-win-win-win? I mean, who doesn't
Exactly.
like that job?
Exactly. But you got to get out there and prove it, and you got to show it. And I think that's where radio really is, right? They need us to prove this. That's essentially what they said in 2018 when I said, hey, this is what I want to do. They said, sounds great. Go ahead and do it. We'd love to see that pan out for us. But the key is go ahead and do it. We don't have the risk appetite for that. Our investor base doesn't support big dollars going into digital experimentation. We need solutions that we know work, and that's what we're going out and pushing.
I real quickly, listen, we've taken up a lot of your time. I know that we haven't even gotten to Vodacast yet, but I just feel that the audio story is so important. I really want to have clarity out there for everybody. And you've got a very strong board. You have a very strong executive team, right? I mean, the
executive team's been together for a long time. Michael Lawless has been a long time technology startup guy here in Colorado. He's an Air Force Academy guy, so I got to know him through the Academy Network. He's worked together with Peter Shoebridge who's our Chief Technology Officer, and that's really the bulk of our team right now as we move over to the commercialization stage. So after February 15th, you'll see our org chart expand more into some of the business development efforts and the typical sales and marketing type stuff that you would expect to see. We just added our most senior marketing hire, and he's at a VP level now, but is extremely talented. Probably is our future, you know, CMO, and he's doing a fantastic job for us. And he's starting to work on those, pushing out the results in Sonoma, so that we hopefully have some good data to put forth and getting ready for that 2/15 launch. So yeah, the team is stuck together through COVID and been together for 8-9 years now.
So you know, one of the things that I is very important to me is insider participation. And I just want everybody to know that, Jeff, you're not just out there, you know, telling a story that you feel your stock is undervalued and it would be a great investment for me to get involved. You actually have skin in the game, right?
Listen, I take this back to my West Point days. You know, I like to say I lead from the front. So when I go out there and I tell my investors to put money in, I'm presenting them an opportunity where I would put my own money in. So I put $5 million into this company while we were private, and I put another $4 million in at the IPO. So I'm bullish on the opportunity, and you know, I see a tremendous road in front of us. You know, 215 and how we do after we launch there is going to be really interesting. And you know, like we said on our call, we're going to put numbers out probably 60 days or so. After that, I think 2 months of that promotion. Granted, we won't have all the radio stations behind us, but we'll be putting a fair effort into that, and it should give us some really good data to then start providing revenue guidance for the first time, which we've never done, because it's almost impossible for us to provide revenue guidance when we don't know how we can convert people to subscription. But we're going to know that soon.
So you've got you've got a couple of catalysts potentially, right? You've got data that you are going to hopefully by January, you start to have some data from the guys you're currently working with, right? Sonoma is the one you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that data, as that comes out, if I'm not, so let's take it just real quick, take a look at the stock. I am a technical guy, and let me pull this up here. The stock has gotten hit pretty hard. Didn't really react to the news about the February release, but I will say this, and all of my people already know this. This is a sector thing and not really a company specific thing, right? Micro caps, small caps have been very weak for actually the last 5 months. But if we look at this spike back here, which I was in the stock, I've been in the stock since the first time I spoke with you, because I was extremely impressed with your story. I was impressed with you, and we had a hell of a nice run. And this was actually on pretty much vapor. I mean, that was air. It really wasn't anything substantial that had come out at that time, other than I think it was an update on, or what do you remember what made it pop?
We made an announcement that we had a breakthrough on our AI technology and how we actually train that technology. I think that brought some new folks into the story, some AI-based folks, because we talk about our AI, but we hadn't really put anything out to expressly state what we were doing. And this was a pretty significant breakthrough for us, and how we can, advance our model. And I think you're starting to see that now, right? We did say that would accelerate our go-to-market strategy. We're now kind of backing that up with the 215 announcement. But what happened is, what I think happened, and this is just pure speculation, is we also did a press release saying that we were launching the Auddia app. And what we meant there is it was active in the stores for the first time with our first Lakes Media stations on board. So this was 6 stations spread across 6 rural markets in Southern Virginia and Northern North Carolina. And that should not have generated the attraction that it did. And the only thing I can think of is that perhaps people thought we were launching all stations at that point in time. But we were pretty clear in those press releases that our strategy was to march forward and add station group after station group after station group. Now we're kind of getting to the point where we did with this last result is saying, hey, we're really close now with our AI platform. We have a couple of percentages more to improve it, to be able to activate all stations. We feel confident enough to go out there and say we're going to be activating all stations on February 15th. So we're kind of getting to what I think people were hoping we were saying last time. I think we're getting to that stage. So until we get there, until we put out some results, I think that's where that's what we have to prove to the market, to get the credit we think we deserve.
Well, I mean, so we've got data that's going to be coming out January, and then February. I guess the only thing that I think in my head is if you push that date back, that could be the market could react negatively to that, right? If you don't hit that deadline, that would probably be not viewed as a good thing, right? I'm sure You're fully aware of that.
Yes, we are.
So, I just want to talk about your chart for a second here, okay? So you just took out. You actually hit new lows, new all-time lows. Now, it is not uncommon for a stock to actually go back, retest that area just to confirm that is actually now your support, which is right at about $2. Round numbers are a big deal with people, right? So when you break through a round number, so we went down, you tested $1.88 or so. This $2 level is looking to me like it wants to be support. You've got a downtrend that you've been in for quite a while since that big spike. And now, but as I said, the overall market, this new variant is weighing heavy on the markets. This was already a sector that was weak, but I can tell you this: you have stochastics that are starting to turn to the upside, and your MACD histo is also getting ready to go to positive. So things are actually kind of lining up almost perfectly with what you've got coming up fundamentally, right? So end of the year, there's a lot of repositioning. There will be some tax loss selling. That's probably already a good portion of that's been done. So I actually think this is a really fantastic potential entry to start building the position. Now, this is just my take. I am not a financial advisor. I just share what I see. Technically, it looks like you're trying to take out this trend line. And we've got this area of resistance right here, about $2.25. That was the floor for quite a while. It held and held and held, and then we just lost that. But when you get back, so that'll act as resistance for a little bit. Maybe that's when we go back down, we test that recent low, and then boom, you're off to the races. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. And if you look at where we're at and the time frame of your potential catalysts, the fact that these things are starting to curl to the upside, it's amazing. Technicals are amazing. You probably are not very familiar with them, but I got to tell you, man, they are unbelievably they're unbelievably accurate at times. So everything seems to be kind of lining up to what you have coming up fundamentally. All right. So I just real quickly want to talk about the financials. How are you on cash to get you through?
Yeah, so we put out our Q3 numbers, and you can see that we have essentially $8 million in cash and no debt, and burning about $500,000 a month. Currently, we don't expect a significant uptick in that. Certainly have the capital to take us through the next year, and certainly get to the point of figuring out exactly where we think the Auddia revenue is going to go, and putting out our first guidance in 2022. So that should all be happening with the current capital. And what we haven't talked about is Vodacast and where we are there. And the press releases we put out there and what we said in the announcement, those are all super favorable. So when we looked at the market reaction to the stock, we thought that where we are on the Vodacast platform and the data that we put out there, although it's early data, really points to the value of where we're trying to go in that space. And for us internally, it was critical data, because not our whole, but a big part of our value proposition on Vodacast is trying to make podcasts more interactive and getting people primarily, as a first step, into that digital feed that correlates to the on-air audio. And a lot of people don't know this, but podcasters have one way to make money. They can sell on-air ads into their podcasts, and they're very limited on inventory. It's typically a pre-roll, a mid-roll, and a post-roll. So limited opportunities for them to make any money. And we bring in this digital feed that gives them access to that digital ad marketplace for the first time. And step one in that was really proving, are consumers going to go to this platform? And the results we saw and put out in the press release were very favorable. 90% of the people that went to a podcast that had a feed engaged in the feed, and over about 40% of those users went through more than 50% of that feed content. And that's without us trying to optimize anything, right? This is very MVP level stuff. So that's super encouraging for the fundamental thesis that drives the value of Vodacast, which ultimately becomes this marketplace that we're trying to build. We also, reinstate or reaffirmed guidance that we were going to have our Flex Revenue product available, first pieces of that starting this quarter, and then beginning to roll out more over next quarter. And that gives podcasters all kinds of additional capabilities to monetize, and it gives consumers the ability to consume any podcast ad-free for a micro payment. So continuing along that premium content thesis. So we're really excited about where things go with Vodacast, and there's some really interesting acceleration strategies that we could pursue there that we hope to be able to talk about more in the future.
All right, fantastic. So I'm kind of doing the beam me up, Scotty, or beam me out, Scotty. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, you're kind of flashing around.
Yeah, I'm doing the phase in, phase out thing. Don't know exactly what the hell's happening here, but that's okay. Jeff, I think this is a fantastic story. I'm excited about the future. In your opinion, where do you feel fair valuation is for the company? Where do you think the stock should be trading?
Yeah, well, I've been counseled not to comment on anything related to,
Okay, gotcha.
fair stock price. I just talk about, the size of the markets that we're playing in, how we're positioned. I consider what we're doing really the biggest story to hit music and streaming audio really since Pandora, Spotify, and SXM came around. Those platforms are fairly stale. There hasn't been a lot of innovation. Radio has continued on doing what it's doing since the 19 whatevers, and we're now coming in with the first premium listening experience there and really revolutionizing and reinventing what people can do with audio there, and then bringing in a podcast platform with it as well. So we think it's super exciting, and listen, we have confidence that the street will see what we're about as we perform. But for us, it's about performance, and that's what we need to drive, and that's what we're doing. So
let's talk about this real quick. So when you do your rollout on February 15th, what do you need from the people that love this story? What do you need from them to help you succeed, right? You need them to go and download the app, right?
Absolutely. Download the app. There'll be a free tier there. Explore the premium offerings that are available, and see what's of interest to you. You can even download the apps now. Honestly, we're doing a promotion during the Sonoma launch and these other pilots up until we launch on February 15th. That anybody who does download it and provide some feedback to us is going to be able to get the premium version of the app free for life after February 15th.
Very, very nice. All right. So Google Play, the app's there, and on Apple.
Yep.
Also.
Yep.
Okay. So you're good to go. Listen, I encourage all the members. I encourage anybody that's watching this, that if you like Jeff's story, the best thing you could do is, besides maybe looking at taking a position in the stock, would also be to download the app and become a consumer, right? That way you can really understand. And if you own the stock, I think you have to become a consumer just so you understand what the product is and the quality and all of that. Jeff, I appreciate your time today. If I have any questions from any of the members, I'm going to send those over to you. I'm sure you'll get back to me as at your earliest convenience. But I think this is a great opportunity from a lot of different avenues, right? Even as a consumer, I think it's a great opportunity, and as an investor, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So I wish you the best of success moving forward, and I'm excited to see what happens after February 15th. Anything else you'd like to say before we close this out?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. I appreciate the time, and really being able to get the story out there. So thank you.
All right, Jeff. Thanks, man.
Okay.
I appreciate it. All right.